Test, test. Ooh. There we go. Audio, audio, audio. Yep, audio is making it into the stream.
Good evening. Welcome to the monthly general meeting of Apple CIDER, Rochester's Apple device, Mac, iPhone, iPad, watch user group. Thank you for coming. We meet once a month on the second Wednesday of the month in the staff cafeteria of East High School. Directions to our meeting are on our webpage, applecider.org. Are we doing the green apples this Saturday? Okay. And this Saturday at 3 p.m., right, we will be doing a question and answer at Steve Ray's home. Is your contact information on the website? You don't want to get a call then from people, don't you?
No, doesn't really matter because I'll be there.
Okay, good enough. And that's a time when you can bring up any sort of questions or problems you have about Apple stuff. We have a shopping link to smile.amazon.com you can access through our webpage, and the club gets a small amount of what you spend, but it doesn't raise your price. We have a Board of Directors meeting on the third Wednesday of the month at Irondequoit United Church of Christ, and the directions to that are on the website also. Anyone is welcome to attend that meeting. You don't have to be on the board. And also, if you have ideas for presentations or any other questions about the group, there's a link on our homepage to email the board of directors. And please feel free to use that. Tonight, we are going to have Todd Bernhardt showing us stuff from Consumer Electronics Show, right? We're also going to have our annual business meeting. And then after that, and whatever time we have left over, I guess we'll do question and answer. Sound good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The way it works is that we will be doing, after Todd finishes, and take all the time you need, we will open the business meeting, and there are a couple of changes we would like to make to the bylaws. The email, I think, mentioned these, and we'll explain them more later. It's just to keep us from getting into a bind if we are short of people to serve on the board. And we'll also have an election for officers and board members. And the deal will be anybody who's a member can vote, and hopefully you picked up a ballot when you signed in. If you have not signed in on the clipboard here, do so at your convenience and grab a ballot. And so you'll be checking those off before we take our refreshment break, and then so they can be counted during the break, and then after the break we'll have the results.
And if you need to renew your dues, I can take that. If you don't know when you expire, I can look that up as well.
Okay. I think I covered it there, didn't I? Go ahead. Mm-hmm. Todd, go ahead. What are you laughing
at? Yep, let me feed Keynote. And yeah, if you can.
Yeah, probably. Until I do for the first half.
Keynote CES, not Finder, Keynote.
No, that's it. I named it Apple.
All right, and I gotta make it a little smaller to fit on the screen. Yes. There's too many other blocks around there. There we are. And keynote and play. Yep. Brightness and volume is up.
Okay, so those of you who don't know me, my name's Todd Bernhard, and I go to the consumer.
Up or down any for you?
I go to the Consumer Electronics Show every year in Las Vegas. It's held the first full week in January. I've been going for about 20 years, and it's a great opportunity to see what's new, to see what's going to be big at Christmas time in the coming year. So let's hit the next slide. So it's a little bit about me. I wear many hats. So I work here for Cloud Checker, software company. Also an app developer. Actually, I just sold my no-tie business. So that's another topic for discussion. But I also write for iPhone Life magazine, and that's why I go to the show and why I get so much good stuff, frankly, to fill up that huge backpack. I give a lot of it away at the July picnic, so that's something to look forward to. We'll have a lot of these good things available for auction for good charity or for good cause. So I thought I'd talk about some of the trends. Everybody asks me when I get back, what was the big thing this year? And it's usually TVs. So we'll go through this agenda. Next slide. All right, so the big trend, again, every year after year, is televisions. And it used to be big TVs, then it was flat TVs, then it was 3D TVs, 4K TVs, and then smart TVs. The big thing this year, they talked about 8K TVs, but the big challenge is, well, you tell me, what's the challenge to 8K TVs? Programming, content. We're barely getting content in 4K, so it's going to be a while before 8K is worth it. Okay. Next slide. Let's stop the video. Okay. All right, so here's TVs at CES, and actually I'm just going to hit play, or Steve is, and let this guy tell you about it.
Historically, TVs have been the star of the show here at CES. This year is no exception, except the TVs are bigger, they have better resolution, and you can actually buy them. We saw the first 8K TV concepts at CES last year, but this year, real production models are everywhere. While it's up for debate whether or not people really need 8K TVs, the companies here at CES definitely want to sell them to you. Samsung, for example, announced a new line of QLED 8K TVs that uses artificial intelligence to upscale conventional content so that it looks like it's an 8K resolution. These TVs start at $5,000 for the 65-inch model, and they go up to an 85-inch model, which will set you back $15,000. Sony also announced a 98-inch 8K TV for its Master Series. Sony hasn't said how much these TVs are going to cost or exactly when they'll come out, but it should be this year. LG had a big TV too, an 88-inch 8K OLED that's absolutely stunning to see in person. Pricing for that is also TBD. Finally, it's worth pointing out that TCL is getting in the 8K game with the new QLED Roku TV with 8K resolution. TCL has a long history of selling high-quality hardware for a very low price, so there's a chance that TCL might actually sell an 8K TV you can afford. But again, you can actually buy all these 8K TVs this year, which is neat. If you want an 8K TV, then again, you might not need all those pixels yet. But that doesn't mean we also didn't see a lot of cool TV concepts. LG really stole the show with a rolling TV that actually descends into a base and kind of disappears when you're not watching it. The company announced it last year, but this year it's actually going on sale. What we will have to wait on is the latest iteration of Samsung's micro LED technology. This is a new kind of TV technology that takes the best features of LED TVs and the best features of OLED TVs and puts them together. The company first showed off this technology last year with a massive TV called the Wall. This year there's even more massive TV called the Wall, as well as smaller modular TVs that Samsung calls Windows. The possibilities for micro LED is exciting because it takes some of the best features from LED technology and the best features from OLED technology and brings them together. But for now, Samsung won't say when these new TVs will be available to the public. In the meantime, I'm sure any of these companies would love to sell you an 8K TV, but good luck finding 8K content.
So he did a better job than I could, so I thought I'd go right to that. So again, the big thing everybody asks me year after year is, what is the big trend? What was the big trend this year? For a long time, it was drones. Then it was augmented reality, virtual reality. Then it was IoT, or Internet of Things. Then it was Alexa, right, or even Google Home, just the smart voice assistants. Then last year I dubbed it the Internet of Smarter Things. It got so cheap to add a Wi-Fi chip and computer chip intelligence to kids' toys that you just saw everything becoming connected, and low-cost things too. But really the big trend this year, and you're going to see this as I talk about products, was just the Wall-E-ification of society, right? So this picture, this video showing the future where we sit in chairs, we have everything delivered to us, we never get out of the chair, and it's not meant to be like a positive view of the future. So you'll see that as you see some of these products. Next. Apple is never at this show. They have not been at the show. They used to go to Macworld, but even that they stopped doing, and then that was the end of Macworld. But they did have a presence because they bought this big ad sign on one of the buildings. And if you'll recall, this happened right after there were some Google breaches and stuff and privacy questions with Facebook. So they said what happens on your iPhone stays on your iPhone, right? So Apple wants to be known as the privacy company, although right after this happened, there was some
the group FaceTime bug.
The FaceTime bug, exactly.
And that's sort of only true until you put Google on it and Facebook on it and InstaChat and Snap, Gram and
exactly.
And ironically, it's on a Marriott hotel that just announced their big breach 4 years ago that they didn't know about at the time when they bought the other hotel chain.
Right. So that was the slight presence of Apple. And actually, if you do the next animation there, so companies approach me before CES and say, hey, could you set up a meeting? And I try to avoid meetings because it's like they say about war, like your plans go out the window when the first shot is fired. So when you get to CES, it's like overwhelming. So if I have an appointment at that end of the strip and I'm at this end of the strip, there's no way I'm going to catch an Uber or a cab to get there, even if I wanted to. So I don't make appointments usually. But this one company said, listen, we really think you should make an appointment. I said, it was Vizio. And I said, you're Vizio, I write for iPhone Life. Unless it's Apple related, I just don't see the point. And they said, well, we're not allowed to say, but we really think it would be a good idea. And that got me thinking. So I made the appointment and I went there, and they announced, along with a couple other companies announced, Apple TV AirPlay capability built into Vizio TVs. You don't need an Apple TV box, right? So you could AirPlay direct to Vizio, and Samsung announced the same thing, and so did LG. The neat thing about Vizio is they said it's backward compatible. They're going to make that firmware available to existing Vizio TVs in the market that you may already own. So that was really cool. And not only just AirPlay, so I could take my phone or tablet or even MacBook and project my screen, but iTunes integration. So I could say, and they have Alexa and Google Home as well, so I could say to my Vizio TV, Alexa, play James Bond Casino Royale, and it would find it, whether it's in iTunes or one of my other subscriptions. So that's pretty cool. Okay. Oh, and so there you see the little AirPlay cast or Google Cast built into Vizio. All right. So there was, as I mentioned, a lot of AR, VR. Here you can't see it too well, but there's a guy with a headset, a virtual reality headset, and a little box in the corner is telling the headset where the goal is, where the puck is. There's no puck. He's just holding a stick, and he's playing a virtual hockey game. So that's kind of neat. I'll let this speak for itself. Virtual reality company. This was LG dishwashers, refrigerators, using augmented reality and gamification to get people excited about their booth. But it worked. It was pretty cool. Another virtual reality issue. So if you're playing VR games and you have to walk around, well, you're going to stumble into chairs. This is almost like a holodeck, like in Star Trek.
A giant hamster ball.
Yeah, a giant hamster ball. So he's got a VR headset. He's wireless. He can walk in any direction. And the faster he walks, it's going to be faster in the game and so on. So this is not something I know it's called consumer electronics, but you're not going to see this in your home. But this could be the kind of thing that might be at Chuck E. Cheese or at the next arcade. So it's kind of cool.
I've seen a treadmill,
Yes.
well, two-dimensional treadmill where you can walk any way you want and it just keeps working.
Yep.
I'd see that a little more likely than the hamster ball.
Yeah, they had those there too, but this was pretty cool. Okay. You just watch this. This is like a virtual reality roller coaster that several people got to ride at once.
They have plastic down underneath.
That was cool. So holograms, another form of augmented reality. I take the camera behind this and you can see there's really nothing to it. That's a really cool effect. 3D printing was very popular, and it has been for a few years, but they're getting bigger and better and able to make bigger objects, like Groot over here. You know, it's just amazing. I said the Internet of Smarter Things. This is a mouthguard company. My daughter plays lacrosse, and she uses this brand of mouthguard, and they have a chip in it now, so they can detect if you've been hit. You come back off the field, and they can use near-field communication with it and detect if you might have had a concussion. So, just pretty impressive stuff.
I saw smart shin guards the same way.
Cool. Air fryers are really big. Who has an air fryer? Right? I bet it's not as big as this one. This is bigger than a person, but this is just, it was just cool, some of the unusual stuff they had to get your attention. Another unusual thing, or another cool thing they would do is photo opportunities. Everybody wants to take a selfie in social media and say, I'm at CES, look at this cool stuff. So this company had 3 different stations. You could take a picture with a Vespa, a rubber ducky, bathtub, or ball pit. This is really cool because I mentioned I work for Cloud Checker, so we do a lot with Amazon Web Services, Amazon. And so instead of baristas, they had banistas. Get it? Banistas. And they were giving out bananas because they look like the Amazon Smile logo. But it was actually very clever because, as you'll see, Google had a big presence at the show. Amazon did not, but they just had like this one little kiosk here. And everybody had to walk past it at some point. And it cost them nothing, just bananas and 2 employees and a kiosk. And
Probably unpaid interns.
Probably, right? All the bananas they can eat.
Yeah.
And it's on your resume. All right. This I thought was cool because I'm in marketing, so we're always worried about our show booth and, you know, what can we do that's cool. Here were at least a couple companies that used shipping containers as part of their booth, right? So it's one thing we have an abundance of with the trade imbalance is shipping containers. Okay. This I thought was just a cool set of wardrobes. You're in Vegas, so these guys all had these shimmering sequin blazers. This is some woman dressed as a mermaid. It's Vegas.
I thought they were cutting down on the booth babes.
They have. I found them there, though. So
Cutting down, not
they
gone.
cut down. They're not gone. So, yeah. And then I stayed there, camped out. No. So there's one, and I think there'll be another. Yeah. Here's the other one. This is some Japanese company, of course. Just we'll get women dancing, and I don't even remember what they're selling. All right. Oh, this was cool. So you guys have all heard by now of the folding phones, right? Now Samsung has one, and Apple might because Samsung makes screens for Apple. But this was the company that had it first, called Royole, R-O-Y-O-L-E. And so they make flexible displays. So in addition to the folding phone, they have this hat, like a top hat, magician's hat, and a display on it, and then you can control it from your phone with Bluetooth. So you could, be at a sporting event and
Oops.
put the winning goal back on your screen or T-shirt. All right, and here's the same company with that folding phone. Yeah. Yeah. This is cool. This is a huge. You can't imagine from this presentation how big this TV image is. It's probably like 500 TVs mounted left to right. Imagine each of those is probably like a 42-inch panel. So it was very cool. Those are actual TV monitors, and they're folded. They're bended. You can see.
You can see the seams too.
Yeah.
That was neat on that micro LED video where when they put together the seams disappear.
Exactly, right to the edge. Yep. All right, so remember my Wally example. There were a lot of these massage chairs. They were like $3,000-$4,000 massage chairs. You could line up and fall asleep in them. They're really, really cool. All right. Every year I go to this, my boss says, "Oh, is there going to be a smart toilet?" And yeah, there is. You know, with Alexa built in and analyze your poop and all that kind of stuff. So yes. Okay. Retro is very big, right? And so here was a Polaroid booth, and they had the old instant camera, a photo op. You could take a picture, but retro is like the new orange is the new black kind of thing. All right. Retro gaming, Pac-Man. So here, even the lady in the booth is wearing, you know, knee-high tube tops and dressed like we else.
No, been really neat if the Pac-Man opened and closed.
Yeah, right, right. Okay. Mechanical Pong. In fact, we took this picture right after Nolan Bushnell, the founder of Atari, had visited the booth. He was very excited to see this. But this company has a coffee table Pong machine that uses mechanics. It uses magnets to move the paddles and move the ball. So it's not digital. It's pretty cool. So there were a lot of these arcades where they're taking your big arcade from before and they're shrinking it down maybe 3/4 size, or in one case they took it, replaced the CRT, the cathode ray tube big TV, with an LCD and mounted it on the wall. And it's much smaller that way, much less obtrusive, and you know you can mount it anywhere, and it's a lot cheaper too. So it's kind of neat.
And you can put dozens or hundreds of games in it now.
Right. Like so, this one on the end here is really more like a console, and you pick which game you want it to be. There were a lot of robots at this show, and here's some. This is cool. I don't know if you can see from back there, but it's tracking me. It's tracking my face. So I'm videotaping it, videotaping me. And as I move around, it's doing face recognition on the iPhone, controlling a real camera SLR, but using the iPhone smarts to track my face.
You used to need a little receiver on your arm.
Right. No, it was really using facial recognition for this. So it's cool. Here's a robotic vending machine. So I mentioned the Wally thing. Now you can sit in those massage chairs and have food delivered to you. Okay.
Close my lid.
Yeah. Here's another one that could be around the office. Replace the cafeteria. Okay. This company makes luggage that will follow you around. I mean, this is straight out of Star Trek and Star Wars. You see that all the time.
Need a giant Wookiee to scream at it.
Here, this robot will feed your dog while you're at work. Give him little treats. So a lot of these robots are out to take our jobs. So this one's to take my job away in marketing. So they have this robot that has a fake face that can talk to you at a trade show and then display the information that you're interested in. A lot of dancing robots. I like to think the guys in the back are like negotiating how many of these they're going to sell in Best Buy. They get better. These guys look like It's a Small World. They look like they're doing a little dance. And now we're getting closer to the Terminator and Skynet, and they're all synchronized. America's Got Talent. They're going to replace dancers.
Had to tie it down so it wouldn't jump off the edge.
Exactly. I got sick of chasing it. Now, because I'm from Rochester, I had to check out the Rochester companies. Of course, Kodak was there. Kodak was very big into retro as well. They're sort of playing off their strength, their brand.
That was their problem. They never got modern.
I know, but now it's caught up, right? You know,
Yeah.
you either die a hero or live to become a villain. You know, sooner or later, your old stuff becomes cool again. And they actually had their wardrobe, like what somebody who raced for NASCAR with Kodak gear 30 years ago might have worn. They're now selling that stuff. And they had it on display, but they weren't selling it at the show. I'm telling you, they could have made a fortune. Everybody was asking them if they could buy that stuff. Vuzix is another local company. They make smart glasses, not necessarily for consumers, more for industry. So if you're working on a car or a jet engine, you can have these glasses that can tell you where to touch and where to tighten the screws and stuff.
Yeah, we had them in last year.
Yeah, so Paul Travers, he spoke at my App Rochester group too. So I always go to theirs. I had to sign up for that in advance and get an appointment. They have a line, you know, way out the booth for that, so good for them. I'm into Star Trek, so this company had a lot of Star Trek stuff. This is a computer in a board case. You know, it's funny for us Apple people, you can get an Apple in the size of a Mac Mini, so you could do anything you want with, make a case around it. Doesn't, all the guts is in a small little spot. They had a Star Trek chair. This in the far right corner, that's not out yet, but that's a Star Trek wireless charger, Qi wireless charger, so I'm looking forward to that. Lights up, plays sounds. Now, the big part of CES, and probably if you watched any of the news shows, is about the vehicles, right? They get a lot of the attention. They have a whole hall just for them. So even though I'm more interested in the computer stuff, I did spend some time. So let's take a look at these. There are a bunch of two wheels. I've been traveling a lot, like San Diego, and they go on these two-wheel scooters everywhere. They just ride them where they need to go, and they drop them, and it's like $1 a minute or an hour or whatever to rent them. So they're just everywhere.
There's a South Park episode where they were ganging together and attacking the townspeople, and they all got thrown in the river. And oops.
Nice. So there are a lot of two-wheel things there, a lot of bicycles, electronic bicycles. You don't see the batteries. They're all built into the shell, and they look pretty cool. Okay. This is actually, if you look carefully, a three-wheel motorcycle, so two wheels up front for stability. Okay. This is another three, technically four wheels because the back is two wheels close to get each other, but it moves around autonomously, like smart driving, but for a scooter. So someone with limited mobility could use this. You know, if it senses somebody, it'll stop and back up and go around. It doesn't go off the edge. This is really cool. You might not be able to see it in the back, but did you see the movie Avatar? So you remember those flying hover jets? Those
Full-scale quadcopter.
Yeah, this is Bosch. This is a serious company, and they're showing this off. It's like a helicopter with, 5 drone fans above it, and serious. Very cool. A lot of the cars all look the same, and part of it is because all the guts to the car is in the floorboards. And GM pioneered this right here in Rochester at the Delphi plant. They called this the skateboard. And back then they were hydrogen powered, but the idea was you put all the guts of the car in the skateboard, and then you can put anything you want on top of it. You want to make it an SUV, it's an SUV. You want to make it a sports car, it's a sports car. Make it a minivan, it's a minivan. Make it a pickup truck, whatever. So everything is in the bottom, and you can customize it with software to make it drive like a pickup truck or drive like a sports car. Okay. Here's another company. So you see this very common design. It's much easier to service too. Okay. So this same company, but now that's mounted on the wall. If you can see it, that skateboard on the wall, and then they put this shell on top, and you're going to see all kinds of different shells where passengers might be facing each other because nobody's doing the driving, the car's driving itself. So we'll just go through these kind of quickly. Here you go. You see like almost bench seats, and this could be like a people mover at an airport just to move people around, and you don't really need doors necessarily. Again, very common. You see a lot of this. There's no idea of the front and back and a steering wheel and so on. Sporty, kind of cool. Again, facing each other. All right, next. Facing each other. These are all different companies. It's not the same car I'm showing you over and over. This is kind of cool. This is almost like in the latest Jurassic World movie, the last two movies, I think, where they had those spheres, right? Those clear spheres that rolled around. So this is an all-clear sphere top. Okay, another example. Another one. Now this one actually has a robot, to combine our previous talk. A robot rides this car to your house, and then the last mile, right, or the last 100 yards, it delivers your packages, and the robot rolls off, it has its packages, and rolls and puts them on your doorstep. So this is, I think, by Continental, the tire company. So it's interesting. Yeah. So there you see the robot would go down that little path. Okay. Same thing. All right. This was just cool. This is a motorcycle all tricked up. Next thing. Another one all with a sidecar. Yeah, exactly. So here's some scooters. I ride a scooter, so I was interested in these. Another one. Motorcycle. Next. This one was cool. This is a scooter. It's called the app scooter, so it's really app enabled, and it had 3 battery packs. I don't know if there's a picture of it, but the battery packs are almost like rifle machine gun magazines, right? So they're curved. You can wear them over your shoulder. You bring it up to your house. You charge it in your house, and you bring it back down in the morning, and slide it in. And so you don't have to worry about where am I going to park my car and charge it. And that's a big problem with electric cars, is if you have to charge it for 2 hours and you go to a movie and the movie's 2.5 hours, people are mad at you, you know, because you didn't get out and free up the charging space. Here, you park wherever you want, you take the battery with you, and you charge it in your room. Okay. There he's got it over his shoulder. Yeah. This was just a sporty vehicle. Next. This was pretty cool. 3-wheel vehicle. Okay. You've probably seen this one. This is the Polaris Slingshot. Ever see the Polaris Slingshot commercials? But if you look carefully, this is like a limo version. This is a Polaris Slingshot that's been stretched, so there's actually 4 seats instead of 2. So it's kind of an oxymoron. Another sporty car. Next. Another sporty car. There's a Formula E car, so it's an electric car. Yep. Yeah. A lot of them have the doors that's called the suicide doors, where they open out this way. Another sporty electric car, Mercedes. Trucks. This is cool. This is a John Deere truck, and you cannot get a feel for how big it is from this shot. So I mean, it would not have fit in the height of this room, but it barely would fit in this room. Okay, next. There you can get a better feel for the height, just how many times bigger it is than a person. That was cool. Yeah.
They're all becoming computer controlled, where it tracks your, what you're planting, your fertilizer, the ground, nutrients and whatnot. Yeah, you program a path, and it will go down, turn around, come back, go down, and do it all by itself. And air-conditioned cabin with surround sound, radio. There's nothing more boring than going back and forth on a field all day long.
All right, that's cool. All right, next one. Now again, this one is hard to get a sense of the scale, but this looked like straight out of Transformers. It was a big, huge semi-truck, and if we go to the next slide, you'll see what it was hauling. So this is, again, you can't get a feel for this, but a huge yacht that they somehow got in the convention center. So that was cool. This is 2 shots of the same thing, but kicker the speaker company made a submarine shaped like a swordfish, which was really cool. Okay. This was the only other sighting of Amazon, so to me that was just really interesting. That you'll see later, there's a lot of Google throughout the show, but Amazon just had the Banistas and this walled-off conference room where you had to make an appointment months in advance to meet with them. Okay. So here's an example of what Google did, and they did this last year too. Google was smart. They didn't necessarily have their own booth on the show floor. They provided 2 or 3 people for all their partners, dressed up in these white painter's outfits with the Google colors. And so any partner who had Google Home integrated into their product, they would donate a couple of staff personnel. And they would train them, and they would be able to talk about the product. And, you know, if you're a thermostat, they could talk about how your thermostat works, but also that it has Google Home integration. And so it gave the partners extra manpower. They didn't have to pay. They didn't have to put them up in hotels and get them there and all that. It was smart. And it got the Google name out there without them having to have booth space. So it was very clever, and they did it again last year. But outside, they paid for this big vending machine. And they had these actors dressed up again who got really excited if you got...
This is a harmonica.
You got a harmonica, yay! You got earbuds, yay! And people were lined up. Such a big line that I didn't get in it, so that tells you how big it was. I didn't get in line for this. You put the fake coin in, out comes your gumball. So that was, but it got a huge crowd. It was good. Now this was really the most impressive to me. This was like a Walt Disney World ride that they assembled in a week and had to tear down in like 48 hours. They even had to lay down concrete to support this thing on the parking lot, and then they had to remove the concrete at the end. This buddy I was with asked him about it and said, "Yeah, it's got to be, you know, dry down to the pavement, the asphalt, and because the next show next week is World of Concrete." No joke. They have a show called World of Concrete, and they had to get rid of the concrete before that show. So they put this together just for this show and tore it down immediately after. But you can go ahead and cycle through some of these. It's just like It's a Small World, and they built it just for the show.
Now what you got on today? Hey Google, tell me about my day.
Good morning, Bob. It's 7:32 a.m. Right now in Peoria, it's 52 and cloudy with storms on the way. You have one reminder for today. Don't forget Grandma's birthday cake.
Oh, yep, we're on it. You guys see that robot cat on a skateboard? It's pretty cool. Hey Google, take me to the bakery.
Okay, starting navigation.
The traffic's appalling. You honk and you shout. The vein in your forehead.
How long was the line for that?
The line was quite long. You had snaked around the building. My videos don't do it justice. The good news is they had somebody professionally videotape it with a 360-degree camera, which means using the right software, you can watch the movie and you can turn left, you can turn right, you decide, and you still see and hear everything. You know, up, down, left, right, you get to see as if you were there. Better quality than I could have done. Okay. So if you look carefully, you see that's me in the front, in the hat with my buddy. Next slide. That's us. So it was just like Disney, you know. You come out and there's a picture, except you didn't have to pay for it, which you would in Disney. All right. So with that, that's my formal presentation. What I do have is a bunch of show and tell if you're interested. I don't know how much time you want me to take, or I have.
Yeah, you can.
Do you want me to stand here, or can I go over there?
Yeah, you can go there.
All right, so I'm just going to go over here. I'm just going to sort of talk through some of the things. Okay, that's good. So, where did I get? So, you guys have all seen Casey, Casey. No, I never saw one.
Do you want the microphone?
This is kind of a failure because this was really cool, and they did a lot of marketing, but the company had a Kickstarter, and they were counting on CES to really help them, and it didn't get funded. But this is a universal stand, and they call it a donut because it looks like a donut, sold in different colors, and you can put your iPhone or your iPad or any tablet in it at a bunch of different angles and read your newspaper, do FaceTime, and that kind of stuff. So it's a shame. This was really good, and they were doing different colors for different charities, and then they gave these out. This was right around the time of the Grammys, and all the Grammy people got them in their bags, and they were doing photos, but they didn't make it. So you're not going to be able to buy them. But maybe I'll donate them to the picnic, okay? There were a lot of companies that had wireless chargers for your car, right? So now that all these phones charge wirelessly, and you probably want to be able to mount your phone in the car, why not have one that wirelessly charges your phone while you're doing that? So I've probably reviewed half a dozen of these already, so it's very popular. Now, who's a gamer? Who likes to play games? Okay, you play them on Xbox, you play them on PlayStation because you like the controllers, you like the buttons. That's been one of the challenges of smartphones with the smart screen or the flat screen, touch screen. You can't get that same feel. So GameVice has an adapter that your phone sits in the middle of, but it gives you real buttons, diamond buttons, and joysticks, and X, Y, A, B buttons as well. So, and those connect via Bluetooth usually. This is cool. It's just a Bluetooth speaker, but again, retro. It looks like an old-fashioned TV with pixels that you can control using their app. So you can make little animations. You could put your name or your face or an emoji. So that was kind of cool. Just a different kind of speaker. I mentioned wireless charging. Well, it's hard to get too excited about wireless chargers, but the folks at 12 South, who make really nice stuff for Apple, they came up with a picture frame. It's not a digital picture frame. It's a regular old-fashioned picture frame where you print a photo and you put it in the frame. But behind the picture is a wireless charger. So some clever people have taken a picture that matches their lock screen, and you put it on there, and it's almost like a floating phone. So it's kind of cool.
We have those in stock.
There you go.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I thought you guys carried their product. So this is the Power Pick wireless charger.
And then you can put your slideshow on your phone. So while your phone is charging, you've got a digital show.
There you go.
For while it's sitting there.
Yeah. This is, I haven't tried it yet. I do get a ton of stuff delivered to my house, as you imagine, because of the magazine. So I get FedEx and I get UPS. The other day I got DHL, and they called me because it had to have a signature. So this is a company called Box Lock, and the idea is you would buy one of those Rubbermaid boxes that you get at Home Depot with a lock on it, and this is the lock. And with the right app, you could unlock it or give a temporary code to FedEx or UPS or DHL or so on. It says it's compatible with all major U.S. parcel carriers, U.S. Postal Service, UPS, FedEx, Amazon, etc. So it's kind of like having a lock for your luggage that TSA can open, right? So the thing that I'm skeptical about that, you guys tell me, are you skeptical, or what do you think about that? You can hack into it, but what's the weakest link? To me, is the Rubbermaid, right? I mean, number one, you could just pick the whole thing up if you're really that ambitious, unless you chain it to your pillar or your post or something. But it's not. Yeah, so I'm not sure it's worth it.
Fill it half up with concrete, and then the top half is your package.
And have a few deliveries of like toilet paper or something that
Yeah.
Two different companies gave me things like this. This is for, so like you've got a video camera here, and you've actually got LEDs in it. These are some really bright LEDs that you can then put diffusers on. So you can, have that kind of Barbara Walters effect, or Barbara Streisand effect. They put Vaseline on the camera, right? So you can have all kinds of different effects for your selfie This is a company that is trying to change something as boring as chargers. Not battery packs, not wireless chargers, but the little brick that ships with every iPhone that you plug into the wall, okay? So instead of silicone, this uses gallium nitride. So they think this is much better. It's faster, low power, it doesn't get hot, and it can charge things much better. So this isn't so much a consumer product, but if they can convince Apple and other companies to use this technology, then maybe they've got something. Here's another lock, but this one is a fingerprint lock. So you could use this for your locker at school, your gym locker, your shed, what have you. They do have kind of a Morse code backup option so that you can, click, 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 click. You come up with your own pattern. I know, right? So this is one of those things that this is great for me, but for my household, I don't think my wife would like this. The other thing I don't like about this, and I wrote about the previous version last year, because this is the TapLock 1 Plus, the original one, TapLock 1, it charges using a proprietary cable. Now, they say it'll last a year, so maybe it's not a big deal, but that little cable is very easy to get lost, and the only way to charge it. Right. Then you could use that SOS backup code. That part is mechanical. But to me, I'm not sold. There's another company that has something like that, but their backup charging is a 9-volt battery. So you just plug in a 9-volt battery underneath it and charges it long enough for you to unlock it. Olloclip was a company that made, and they still do, camera adapters, lens adapters that sit on top of your iPhone, but you had to buy a new one every time you got a new iPhone. So these guys make something that works more like a clip, like a clothesline clip, or a bag tag clip, and it'll go on top of any phone. So you get a new phone, you can still use these for fisheye, wide-angle, telephoto lens. Who has a smart home of some degree? You have lights that go on, you have Alexa, you have anything smart in your home. Nobody? A little bit? You're the smart. I don't know. I got to do another talk on smart homes, I guess. So I have, smart lights, and I have Alexa, but I have to tell Alexa, turn on the lights or turn off the lights. What I would like is, if I walk into a room, it could turn on those lights. So Kangaroo is this really clever, cute little company that sells these devices. Every single device is $20, period. So you can predict. You don't have to think, oh my God, this is going to cost me a fortune. Like Hue lights. The light bulbs are one price, but you need a bridge, and you need a box that will talk to Alexa and everything. So this is $20 for the motion sensor, and then $20 for the light switch, and $20 for the light bulb, or if you wanted one or the other, and so on. So you can build it modularly and grow and see if you like it. So that's cool. Headphones that are suitable for kids, that you can control the volume so they're not going to blast the kids' ears, ruin their hearing. And these ones are Bluetooth wireless, so that's cool. Okay, so how about, does anybody have a Ring doorbell? Video doorbell? Have you seen those? So you got a smart home, all right? So you got a Ring doorbell. I got one of those, but I had to install it, right? It took a little bit of wiring, a little bit of mechanical work. What if you have an apartment and you're not allowed to install something like that, right? So these guys make a replacement for your peephole, right? So you push out your peephole. If it's an apartment, you keep that, put it in a plastic bag so when you leave, you can put it back. And this goes over the back of the peephole so you can see who's at your door with the screen. And it also goes to your phone, is battery powered. So that's cool. This actually I did not get at CES. I got this at the New York Comic Con. I go to a lot of these shows. I went to Comic Con. This is just a T-shirt. I haven't played with it yet, but it's augmented reality T-shirt. So if you wear the shirt and you got the app, you can see zombies chasing you and kind of cool. I went to the New York Toy Fair as well since CES. So let's see what I got there. This is it's just a Bluetooth speaker, but it's shaped like a narwhal, which is all the kids love narwhals. They got their own song.
You think they'd stab each other with the knife?
I know, right? You've heard of Game of Thrones. This is Game of Phones. So this is actually a fun little smartphone-based, like a board game that says, okay, everyone has to take a selfie with their tongue out, right? Or somebody has to find, a recipe for chicken noodle soup. So it's, you use the internet, you use the phones, and it's kind of a wholesome thing. And then they have different game packs, add-on packs, to make the game last longer. All right, so now we all have webcams, right? And you're worried that the somebody's spying on you, so they have webcam covers. And a lot of companies give these away. These guys are selling them, but they're kind of cute. They have little like mustaches and stuff, and so I think those are going to be popular. This was just a Batman charging cable, but that was pretty cool. This was a collectible pin company called FigPin, and they sell really cool pins, and they have an app for collecting them, and so you can buy and sell and trade and collect them all, kind of like Pokemon, but with real pins. This was a scratch-off game where they had physical cards that you would scratch off, and then they would add functionality in the game. So a lot of companies are trying to figure out how can we mix board games with technology, and get kids to be more creative than just using tap, 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 tap. And here's just a keyring charger. So that was cool. But the last thing that I wanted to show you. So who has an Alexa or an Echo or a Google, any of those, Google Mini? Okay. So are you worried that Apple or Google or Amazon are listening in on you? It's always a concern, right? Yeah. So what can you do? You could unplug it. You could press the mute button if you trust it, right? Well, so this company, this guy came up with Mute Plus, which is a device that you put on top of your Echo, okay? And it's not just a piece of plastic. It actually has a fan that generates white noise. And it's enough that it will truly knock out those microphones, because there's like 8 or 9 microphones depending on the model with this white noise, and it won't hear you. And you can test it. And then you can set a timer. So it's a mechanical timer. So if you're in a board meeting and you're like, all right, we got to discuss the merger, and wait, we got this Google thing here, or this Echo thing here. You put this on, you say, all right, for the next 15 minutes, it'll be on, and it silences it.
That almost goes back to the camera cover.
Exactly.
You can cover your camera, but your microphone is still open.
Exactly. So you can cover your camera. You can also cover your camera with a piece of tape. So, do you need to buy something, or companies will give you something for free? This thing, I think they got a tough road to prove, but it does what it says. I mean, the other option, again, is just unplugging the Echo or not putting one in your company boardroom. But then when you plug it back in, it has to boot up, and it takes a while, and it's just something to think about. But, exactly what I told the guy, right? And he says, yep, everyone says that. The cone of silence from Get Smart. So I've gone pretty quickly, but that's a lot of stuff. And what questions do you guys have about the show or about trends? No, the book bag I brought to the show because I knew I'd be coming home with a lot of stuff, and I have twice this amount of stuff at home still. Well, it folds up. I just, it was empty. I folded it up, and I always go in Southwest because I travel with 2 pieces of luggage, one inside the other, and I know once I get there, I'm going to have more stuff, and it's crazy.
That was always the thing about going to a trade show is you have the first booth you have to find has a really good bag to carry all the other stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it doesn't all come back. It doesn't all make it through. We've literally had that happen. Like after the show, my buddy Michael, who you saw in the pictures, is like, "Didn't I get a battery case?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I think TSA ended up with it." So they did a little skim off the top. So you got to put the good stuff on the bottom. I guess.
I've always thought you should open a shipping company next to the TSA booth, and for $5 we'll ship that home for you.
I did have a case where a company gave me a record player, which was great and very generous of them, but it cost me more to ship it back home than it would have been just to buy one. So that was kind of a wash. But actually, this time I was smart. A company called Ion, they took my email and they sent me a record player after on their own, and I didn't have to schlep it. So I continue throughout the year to get stuff. And again, I try to bring it to the picnic and share it with you guys, give you a chance to get some cool stuff cheap. Good question. All of the above. It has gotten so big that it stretches from Mandalay Bay on one end all the way up to what used to be the Hilton. Right, so and through there is the Sands and the Wynn is building their own convention center as we speak. When I went to Vizio, they were off at the Aria Hotel. They had their own ballroom. I went to the Flamingo for the Chinese pavilion. Every square inch of floor space is being used, and they're building more. Oh no, like 5 days. So we get there on Saturday, and then on Sunday is usually the press. They call it CES Unveiled. That's usually like at 4 o'clock. So we have a little day to just schma around, and then we go to the press thing. Then the next day is a whole press day of press releases. It's not open to the public. And Panasonic and Sony and companies will have big shows, big unveilings. That's where Royal showed their folding phone. And then there's a party that night. The party's where you go, and I fill this thing up. So it's just for the press, and you go from booth to booth to booth that you're interested in. And then during the day, I try to do as methodically as possible because you can't see it all. So like the first day I went to, it's called Eureka Park, which is just for startups. So it's low-cost space. So if you're a startup, you can't afford one of these big fancy booths. And in many cases, they'll have pavilions, like they have the Israeli pavilion, the Taiwan pavilion, the French pavilion, and the countries will buy the space. And then they'll have some competition, presumably, to get their best startups, the ones with the best chance, to exhibit in those spots. So it might be, 6 companies in a space like this, and it's smart, and you get a lot of bang for your buck. And my daughter, who goes to Case Western University, this is her first year. Last year I went to the Case booth, so the university had a booth, and they had maybe 10 companies, 10 student entrepreneurial companies exhibiting there, and I told them, oh, my daughter's just got in, and we're not sure if she's going to go. And this year I got to go, and I said, my daughter goes there, and one of the girls there knew her, so that was really cool. So some of the forward-thinking universities have space there, and so on. And then the next day I went to the convention center itself, which has a north, central, and south hall, and the south hall is up and down. And that's where you see things like the John Deere thing, like the big stuff is there, and all the cars and the yacht and stuff like that. It's in the North Hall. And that you can't do in one day. So I try to do that as much as I can, and the next day I finish that. And the next day so we're probably there 5 days. Oh my God, yes, yeah. So many steps, and you got to wear good shoes. Yeah, well, Noel Lee, you guys know Monster Cable? So Monster Cable, Noel Lee has some leg issues, and he actually, until this year, traveled on a Segway. I've been going for 20 years. I always see him on a Segway. Nice gold Segway, really cool. But this year he was not doing well, so he was in a wheelchair. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot of walking.
Yeah, they don't have their 2019 numbers out yet, but in 2018, they had 4,400 exhibitors, 2.7 million square feet, and nearly 200,000 attendees. 70,000 exhibitor personnel. So 4,400 exhibitors and 70,000 personnel. What's that average out to?
So I used to go to, when I worked at Sun Microsystems, you saw your shirt. I worked at Sun from 88 to 93, and we would go to Comdex, which is sort of the precursor of CES. And we would exhibit, and we had these big, huge 23-inch monitors that were CRT monitors. They were cubes. And they were great, but they were so heavy. And now it's like flat panels, flexible flat panel. I mean, it's so much different. But
even projectors are almost a downturn because flat panel TVs.
Yeah. I mean, probably the same way. It's just, I don't remember how thick they were, though. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Yeah. So it's probably it's probably it was probably some kind of mechanical thing on wheels, and it's amazing. But it will be interesting that the next big one is in Japan, in Tokyo. That's going to be impressive.
There was just news a couple of days ago. The Japanese government had passed a bill allowing them, of course, to try to break into everyone's routers and IoT devices to see if they have default passwords, and tell the owners they have default passwords to make them change it before millions of visitors come to the country and screw up the infrastructure.
Great. All right. Other questions, or you guys want to check stuff out? Yeah, go ahead. Every year my buddy and I were like, this is it. This is the last time. This is just too much. My feet are killing me. Enough. And yet we always seem to go back. So it's just too cool and too good, too exciting, and look how it pays dividends. Like, I mean, not just that I get all this free stuff, but I'll speak at events, I'll write articles for the whole year based on that 1 week. So it's hard to say no. And look, I just went to the Toy Fair in New York City a week or two ago, and I go to Comic-Con, so if I was to cut any of them, it would probably be the smaller ones, but CES I would still try to do. Excellent question. How much are the tickets? Free. The tickets to CES, number one, because I'm media, they're free. But for the average user, they're only like $50 or $100. But a lot of companies get free passes. So if you just Google and say free pass 2020 CES, some vendor will say, just sign up here, use this code, and you get a free pass. To get in is free. That's why it's 182,000. And quite honestly, a lot of those are Vegas people, right? They're like, oh, what are we going to do? Oh, I just saw on TV. Let's go to CES. So there's a big chunk that is that.
Without any of that industry stuff, it's $300.
Yeah, but it's easy. It's easy to pretend you're in industry, or they don't really check you. For the press, they check you, but not as much as I'd like, because 7,000. There's no way there's 7,000 really press people. But the real expense is getting there and the hotel. So I go with my buddy, and we share a hotel, and it's fairly reasonable. But you got to do it in advance, and we usually fly from Buffalo, where it's cheaper. You get a direct flight out of Southwest. So we don't, but he's good about that stuff. We did do eBay one time, which is before Airbnb, and we got like a Wyndham timeshare. So there's opportunities. There's still a lot of hotel space, but you can't just say, oh, I want to stay at the Bellagio, and then you find it's $500 a night. You plan it out. Yeah. Well, I would recommend if you can get a cancelable one to do it right away, right? There's as long as it's cancelable, there's nothing stopping you. But if you're serious about doing it, do it say by June for the next January.
To actually have an exhibit there, the booths are about $8,000 apparently, and this was for the 2018 prices.
Yeah, and that's probably like a really entry level, small 10 by 10 square space.
That's the Showstopper booth.
No, is that Showstoppers?
I think that's. I'm trying to search for a price tag on Tech Data.
So the parties that I mentioned, there's two parties. There's CES Unveiled, which is the official party, and then there's Showstoppers and Pepcom, and those are put on by separate companies. And Showstoppers, I've seen the Showstoppers guys at the New York Auto Fair, the auto show, so they're not just for CES. So Showstoppers and Pepcom are in the evening just for the press. They're probably about $8,000, and it's for one night, and it's a table maybe this big but tall. But that is worth it because you're getting the press just for no frankly riffraff, right? Nobody from Vegas off the street just looking for free handouts. This is the press. This is who you want to reach. And so Guy Kawasaki, you guys know Guy Kawasaki because he's the Apple guy. He says that if you Google Guy Kawasaki Showstoppers, he'll tell you that's your best money. If you're a startup, don't have a big booth at the show where it's going to be $20,000 and you're going to have a fancy booth and you're going to have personnel and they're all going to need a hotel. Do Showstoppers one night. Get in front of the press and spend your money wisely, or Pepcom.
There's an article from 2012 that Samsung spent $850,000 on a 25,000 square foot booth. But your average 10 by 10 booth is only $4,000 in 2012. Yeah. Surprisingly, there's nothing on the CES site about what the price is. Probably because they haven't decided for 2020 yet.
So, did you have a question, or yeah, sorry. Right. So, good question. So, I get a lot of AirPod competitors to review. None of them are able to match what Apple does. Maybe it's because they have that special chip in them, but you can actually do gestures with them. And supposedly in the next one, you'll be able to talk to Siri without the gesture. So that was sort of leaked in the last that little commercial they did at the beginning of WWDC with a girl running through the campus. And it'll have Wi-Fi charging, wireless charging built in. So the Apple AirPods are continuing to stay ahead of competitors. I think competitors are trying to how can we compete with this really well-known, well-established, and frankly a status symbol, right? You see those little AirPods sticking out. My daughter's like, "Can you get me those?" I'm like, "Apple doesn't give me anything for free. These other guys do." So the other ones are competing on cost and trying to sound as good, have longer battery life, charge wirelessly, but they're not able to do those other things.
There were some $30 ones on Amazon. A couple of guys on Second Life were talking about them, and they were okay. They were $30 value earbuds, but the joke was, I buy 3, 4, 5 of those for the price of an Apple one.
Right. Yeah. So my buddy got the Apple ones, and I said, "You're going to lose them," and he lost them. And so if you lose a $30 one, okay, so.
And it looks like where am I? I'm on Tech Radar. Most of the the Jabra and RJ haven't heard of. Most of the other true quality competitors are in that same price. 100 to 160. Well, those ones aren't too bad at 60. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. You got to really be careful if you're buying a competitor. Is when they say battery life, like that one right there, it said 4.5 hours. 13.5 with the case. So what they're doing is they're just sort of lying, and they're saying, well, start to finish, this thing will last 4.5 hours. But if you include that you have a case with a battery, then you can plug it in, and maybe in a couple hours it'll be charged, and then you have another 4.5 hours, and you can plug it in, and in a couple hours you'll have another 4.5 hours, up to 13.5 total hours. So it's not like you can go on a trip to Australia or Singapore or South Africa for 40 hours and just use them. You're going to have to constantly take them out and charge them as part of that. So it's very misleading.
And I've done that with my AirPods. I get like 4 hours recording. That's one of the tricks too. If you're just listening, you get a lot more life than if you're speaking. So I'll put one bud in, and we'll record 3 or 4 hours, and then swap it in the case with the other one and record 3 or 4 hours. So we've done that on all day recording sometimes, and literally all day long, because your case will charge it up again. So how much does Apple say? 24 hours, is it?
Yeah, I think so. But so it's in theory it's infinite recording if you're always charging your case. So. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. 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 It's really hard to get it right. And there was one company, in fact, if you search on Twitter for my name and AR glasses, probably it'll come up. I forget the name, but they were at one of these shows, like Showstoppers or Pepcom, and they had me try them on and asked my feedback, and they recorded my video and played it. What they did differently was they didn't try to stuff all the guts into the glasses. So they had the guts powered by your phone. And what that meant is that the glasses now became almost like a disposable commodity. Like if you're at the job site, you pick up a hard hat and you pick up some glasses. And it's not like, oh, these are $500 Google glasses or Vuzix glasses, and you're assigned them and you better not break them, you better not lose them. But by moving all the guts out and just making it and it also helps with privacy. There's nothing on that device. All the memory, everything is being driven off your phone. So, they got to find a way to make them that level of. So you grab your hard hat and you grab your safety glasses and that kind of thing. So, Vuzix might be we're lucky they're right here, but they're getting a lot of buzz. They're about $500. They're getting there. Great question. So it's almost funny. It's almost like gallows humor. Like, so my buddy and I, we go to that startup area, and we're like, they're not going to be here next year. They're not going to be here next year, And we try to be nice to them. Try to be like, well, have you thought about, maybe you need to, we'll give them advice as best we can in the short amount of time. But you can tell that there are companies that are, these guys, they spent their entire budget on this 1 week or this 1 month, and they didn't get the buzz they needed, and they're gone within a month. So I can certainly predict the ones that'll be gone within a year. But it's yeah. Oh, you know what? I didn't even tell you this. This guy's not going to make it, right? The mute your speaker, just unplug it. This company I didn't mention yet, this is an alternative to a smartwatch, right? So, the Apple Watch, maybe it's too expensive to give your kid. Maybe you don't like that it only lasts about a day or two with the battery, what have you. Maybe it's too bulky. This doesn't seem to answer enough of those things. It also lasts a couple days. It's bulkier than my Apple Watch. Doesn't look as good, I think, as my Apple Watch. I don't know. They probably look like this. This is brand new, the Gobi 2. Maybe it's the Gobi 1, right? So this is Gobi 2. So, it's like they aren't compelling enough. And it's kind of like those headphones. They're not cheaper. They don't last longer than the Apple One. So why not just get the Apple One? Or maybe if you're an Android person, then there's a market for it. But you really gotta.
That's not the Gobi Smart Shoe, is it?
No. No. And then again, the tap lock one. Like, I'm not willing to trust my storage shed or my gym locker or whatever, and then have to remember that obscure cable There's a competitor to them called Igloo Home, and they're going after like Airbnb vendors. So you would have a much bigger thing like this around your doorknob, kind of like real estate folks do, and you can unlock it with a code, and so then you can get into the Airbnb. But also, if the battery ever were to die on it, you just take a 9-volt battery, stick it on the bottom, and a minute later it's charged enough. So they've thought through those things, and I just don't think they.
I saw one like that, back in Vending digital one. On the back of the Philips gate, you just take the Philips gate, check it out, install the lock, and then
Yeah.
not thinking.
Right. So there's too much of that, and honestly, I'm also a marketing guy. So a lot of times there might be companies with great products, and my buddy and I would go there, and we wanted to have like a consultancy to tell them how to do a better job at trade shows, because they'll have a lot of them will be the China pavilion I went to, the Flamingo Hotel. So China got this whole ballroom, and they had a marketing firm, and they put out advertising, and they invited us and everything, and they gave us a nice little like USB drive, and they were really hospitable, but their signs were all misspelled and full of broken English. You pay for that, and it's printed, and just call a native English speaker. And I by no means like, if I tried to do the same thing in China, forget about it. I couldn't even do it in France, and I took French. So you're right. So get a native speaker in that country to review all your marketing material. So it's not even just about the product failing. It's your we call it go to market, your strategy. Just
How many of the products will ship anytime soon? Because that was always the big thing about CES, is they show stuff that might ship this Christmas, probably next Christmas.
Right. So it's kind of like if you're in Eureka Park, you're not going to be shipping this year, right? So Eureka Park is for this stuff where you want to get the technology out. Hey, I'm the one who invented this, and I need venture capital, I need Best Buy, or I need somebody to get behind this. And if they don't, I'm out. I'm spending all my money on this one effort, and by definition, most are going to fail. If you're in the other part of the booths, you've got the bigger display, you've got the marketing strategy, you've got people. At that point, you already have appointments lined up with Best Buy. Best Buy. Look, CompUSA is gone, Circuit City's gone, Radio Shack is gone. It's Best Buy, and it's between Best Buy and Amazon. I think somebody said Amazon has 50% of e-commerce. It's huge. So if you don't get them, and that's why Amazon had that booth with reservations only. They're not there talking to the riffraff. They're like, you have to make an appointment in September if you want to talk to us in January, and it's in and out. Amazon bought a company. They bought Ring, the Ring video doorbell, and they bought another company that makes cameras, and then
They just bought Eero.
Eero for Wi-Fi, but there's another one. I think it's just called Home, Amazon Home or something. But the idea is they can actually unlock your door. Right? And so you really got to have some faith in these guys so they can unlock your door, put your package in your house, and lock your door.
There was
So you don't need this.
part of that system is a camera that you put in your house facing the door.
Right. So that was
And-
a company.
And it was like a day before people figured out how to pause the camera and spoof the door lock.
Great.
Just supposedly, if someone tries to break in and steal your stuff, they're on camera. But no, they figured out how to turn the camera off.
But, and that's why Amazon now is looking at opening grocery stores separate from Whole Foods. And now you'll be able to go to Whole Foods or these grocery stores, pick up your products from an Amazon locker. When my daughter goes to college, they have an Amazon locker, so I could ship it right to there. And she just goes to her locker and unlocks it, gets her product. And I just was reading about this. I didn't even know this, that Kohl's lets you return products. So a lot of companies are threatened by Amazon, a lot of retailers. Kohl's said, you know what? We're going to embrace them, and you can bring your Amazon returns right to Kohl's, return it, we'll ship it back to Amazon. Oh, and while you're here, maybe you'll buy something.
Yeah, Amazon is shutting down all of its pop-up stores.
Yeah, and Kohl's. So, I don't know. So it's very interesting. To me, it's like more interesting than Game of Thrones. Like, well, who's going to win, and or March Madness. I'm like, you walk at these shows, and they're not gonna make it. Or they spend all this money on a show. We just talked about how much they cost, and they don't staff it. Or they're sitting there looking at their phone as you walk past. Oh my God! I'm like, hi, I'm from the press. Not that I'm like CNN, but I could write about your product, and they're just reading their phones, whatever. Yeah, it's a shame.
Years ago, when before the smartphone got all over the place, we'd walk into a store,
Mhm.
and the clerk would be behind the counter on a landline phone,
Yeah.
totally ignoring you.
Yeah.
And now through technology,
The-
they can ignore you.
Well, exactly right. They can.
The behavior is the same.
Yeah. We were just joking because my mom's not normally like this. So if you ever meet her, don't like say I heard you did this. But she was at a store in New York City called Eileen Fisher, which is like a fashion store, and she likes their clothes. And this was shortly after I was either married or dating my wife. She was with us, and so my mom comes in and she wants some help. And this woman is just they're folding and whatever, and so my mother waits a little while and says, "Excuse me." And she goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, I was busy." And she goes, "No, you weren't." It was just, whoa. It was just like, Mom, she's no, you weren't. You were folding, and a customer came in and wasn't addressed. And that's another challenge I have is, I used to work retail, and if somebody wants to give you money, take it. So if you're standing there ready to pay, and there's nobody there to take your money, that's why people walk out. And there's money on the table. So I could go all day, but I've taken a lot of time. Thank you. You guys can look at the stuff, and thanks.
All right, thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
And you can see more of Todd's writing on iPhone Life /blog/Todd Barnhart.
And one thing that I bought.
Yeah. Oh, you paid for?
I paid for this. I bought an original one. It's $10. You ever played the Oregon Trail? They have a handheld version of it.
Oh, wow. 8-bit. It's only $18. Did what was it? The Google Doodle a couple of days ago with the 30th anniversary of the World Wide Web was an 8-bit doodle running 8-bit World Wide Web. Does anybody need to check their membership? Okay, I'll put the microphone over by your podium. Yep. Sure. All right. We'll set that there a minute. Let me grab my. Good point. Yes, I do. Anybody's reader counts. It's your login that matters. Okay. Just back there's fine. Square. And I'll put this in my zipper bag. Checks or credit card, Carol? Oh, you're waiting for that. Okay. All right, dues, card, charge, and swipe. straight. Yeah, we've got the Intuit one at the office that does Apple Pay and the chip. In fact, Intuit had one that does chip and swipe that you plug into the headphone jack, but then the Apple Pay one plugs in by itself. So that will do all near field as well. Nope, because that's your reader. Did Shirley sign me in there, Charlie, probably? Well, don't we have to introduce the candidates? We have to announce the slate and introduce the candidates.
All right. If you can't hear me, good for you. All right. Shirley, are you taking time here? It'll be 8:34 p.m. Maybe. Anybody have computer time?
8:34.
8:34. So much for my watch. All right. Welcome to the annual business meeting of Apple Cider. Am I deafening enough? Well, I don't think this thing is on. So
You have to be closer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you have to swallow it. This is a larynx mic. You just put it down your throat.
Like you really like it.
Okay. So I'm going to, just for the heck of it, I'm going to do this so-called President's Report. The President's Report says we had a bunch of meetings. And it is our custom to bore you with what we did for the last year. So basically, according to this thing, I took this out of the monthly emails for the list of topics and so forth. And a year ago, March 14th, 2018, was this kind of meeting, a business meeting, and so on. And a lot of this information is probably true. Meaning, in other words, the email may have said this is going to happen and it didn't happen, but don't sweat it. Tips and tricks with Google's suite of products with Jerry Seward. In April, we had Todd Bernhardt doing the CES stuff. In May, Sherry Wood did InDesign home publishing software at the risk of her life because she got electrocuted by one of the chairs in the auditorium. And Steve may have done something about emojis in iOS 11.3, which is sort of history. I didn't find a June email, so you can make something up. The annual picnic was in July, and that was a good one. That was a good time. In August, well, it should say August, because it says Ice Cream Social. That's out at Frank's Church, where we meet in August. In September, new iPhone announcements, iOS 12 first look, and the AR glasses with Greg Moens of Vuzix, which Todd was showing stuff about tonight. That was a really good presentation. And that was our last meeting in the forum room because we showed up in October and that had been taken apart. It was gone. We ended up in the auditorium. And I want to thank Rick Harrison in passing because we may do pretty well in the auditorium, but at the end of the meeting he pointed out that that was not going to go on once drama and music got started in the school. So I came in and talked to the people in the office, and a very nice woman named Maria said, how about the staff gaff? And that's why we're here. And I think pretty well this has worked out okay so far. And then in November, we hooked up with Adam Engst remotely and talked about holiday shopping stuff. In December, computer health with George Engel, a new member who joined us in the past year and has been very helpful. And Bob Hoey showed his ear cam thing. And I didn't find an email for January, so you can make something up. And in February last month, Lyle Teague talked about his volunteer work with AARP in taxes, which was kind of handy when I did mine and found out about the half-dozen silly little forms and stuff that they introduced. Okay, that's all I'm going to do about that. I would like to thank everybody who serves on the board for everything that they do to keep this club going. And George, besides joining the club, joined us on the board this year. And I am going to announce the candidates here and get that over with so then you can do your treasurer's report and we can go right on to the break.
And as your name is announced, make yourself known and then give us a 20-minute biography of your qualifications.
Yeah, what's going on is, as you know, we're going to try to make some minor changes to the, some changes to the bylaws because we have a small number of people who are willing and able to serve on the board, and we may find ourselves in a bind if we don't remove some restrictions there. But at any rate, looking at your ballot, and I want to say right now that if you have, if you want to write people in, you can do it, and then they have a right to say heck no if they want to. And you can also add any nominations from the floor. So Vicki Zayer is going to run for president here, kindly, because I'm term limited out under the current bylaws. George Engel is running to continue as VP for programming. Steve is going to continue for treasurer, and I'm going to ask to be secretary and give Shirley a break for a year here. And then the candidates for just director's positions are Bob Hoey, who's not here tonight, Carol Reno, who is, hi Carol, and Shirley Ray. And I also want to thank Shirley and Carol and Vicki for the refreshments every month back there. Just, it wouldn't be the same without them. So, now you've got your ballots, or you may have turned them in already, and so on, and we'll announce the exciting results of that after the break.
And you may notice that the Vice President of Publicity is open. We are looking for someone to help publicize the club, post our meeting notices in like the what's that magazine we always posted, our city newspaper, or any other community calendars you want, just to try to help us grow the membership of the club.
Are there any additional nominations for any of these positions from the floor? Okay, I think we got that taken care of. I'd like to move right ahead to this bylaws situation. We're just going to do this by show of hands or something like that. It takes 2/3 of those present to make these changes, and we'll discuss them as needed as we go along. The first proposed change is in
You got it?
no, I've got it here. It says Article 1, name. And basically, we've moved our post office box from a UPS box at 12 Corners down to the central post office on Jefferson Road. And the bylaws need to reflect that, just to change the address there. Is there a motion to make that address change in the bylaws? George Engel. Is there a second? Carol Areno. Is there any discussion about this? All in favor? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay. All against? Okay. That's carried. All right. Now the second change is in, dear me, Article 5, officers.
And I want to thank Shirley for pointing out that our numbering scheme on the website didn't work. So it started over at 1 again instead of being 6 and 7.
Yeah. I have trouble with that too. All right, Article 5, number 6. No member shall be eligible to hold more than one office within the organization at a time. We want to just delete that. Depending on how desperate we get in terms of the number of people on the board, somebody might have to wear 2 hats. Is there a motion to delete that? George Engel, second. Rick Harrison. Okay, well, discussion time. That's a good question. I would think it'd be 1 vote per person. I mean,
Per membership, yeah, I think that's another section in the bylaws about who gets a vote. Is a member gets 1 vote.
yeah, okay. Will we find that adequate that the bylaws say that? Okay, good point. Yeah. Any other discussion of that? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I don't know where the hell I got this. All right, that's carried. And finally, in number 7 under the same article, with the exception of the office of treasurer, no individual shall serve in the same office for more than 3 full consecutive terms. The proposal is simply to delete that. Is there a motion to do that? George Engel moves. Is there a second? Carol Areno seconds it. Any discussion about that? Okay, I mean, yes. Well, assume, you know.
He can be written in if he wants. But
no, that's correct. I would not be. But assuming that I'm not running for president and Vicki is, and assuming people go along with that, she'll be the president. Yeah, no, yeah, that's fine. I mean, the whole thing is that obviously a lot of these things were in there so that no little clique of people, you know, tried to seize control of the club. And these days we're lucky if we can come up with a little clique of people. And the other thing is that this won't stop us from having business meetings once a year, and anytime 2 members, I believe, is all it takes to demand a business meeting, as it were. And you know, at which you can change bylaws or whatever. So, I mean, it's not like this is going to become a dictatorship or something. It's just a case of, you know, we try to follow the bylaws, so we need to make the bylaws followable. All in favor of that deletion? 1, 2, 3. Dennis, you going along? Great. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay. Yeah. All right. That's all opposed. None. Okay. That's carried. All right. Thank you. That takes care of the president's report and.
Shirley, did you have a question?
Okay. Yeah, very good. I think we're all set, Steve. We can go to your treasurer's report.
Okay. So in my position as treasurer, I've been handling the finances. With our dwindling membership, we have been trying to cut back on expenses. And our for 2018, our spending outpaced our income. Our primary income is dues. We also get some sales and referral fees through Amazon, So referral fees is our Amazon Smile donations and Amazon um, um, referral. That's the word I wanted. Referral fee. So if you haven't already picked a charity at smile.amazon.com, you can pick apple cider, and then a portion of your purchase is donated to the club. It doesn't affect your purchase price any, but it does help the club out a little bit. And then sales are usually from the picnic, and contributions are typically the money left in the donation cup that help pay for the refreshments. Our major expenses are the insurance, and the biggest expense is the meeting facility rental, and that's the East High here 10 months a year, and then the picnic pavilion gets folded into a picnic expense rather than meeting facilities, and the board meeting location at the church gets folded into that. Our P.O. box was $148 in 2018. They raised it to $212 in 2019. So that was and that's their smallest box. And that was the primary reason we switched to a post office box, which was, I think, $60. I think so. It was a third the price of the UPS store. The one thing I did notice, and then we'll get to you, Dennis, when we went to change the address at the bank, they wouldn't accept the P.O. box and wanted a physical address. So in my role as quartermaster and treasurer, I used my home address to be the physical address for banking purposes. Our mailing address is the P.O. box. Dennis. Yeah, we must have a mailing address. We thought about changing the postal address to just my house anyway, but we didn't want to do that. It's unlikely I won't be treasurer. No one else has wanted the job. But it also, for legal purposes, you need an address, and that's where we do get people that mail dues in to us. Ironically, the two non-junk mail we get at our mailbox are our bank statements and our insurance statements. So that comes to the P.O. box. And apparently, was it MetLife? Yeah, an insurance company used to have our P.O. box because we've been getting mail addressed to them. Yes, especially since we've dropped the cost of the P.O. box significantly. We did stick with a Rochester mailing address because we kind of liked that anyway. I did see some of the outlying post offices were $20 cheaper, but we wanted to stick with a Rochester mailing address. And so that compares, unfortunately, not very favorably with 2017. Let me see if I can bring both of these up at the same time. Yeah. Our dues were down by, 25%. And our sales in 2017, we sold the club computer when we purchased a new computer. So our expenses were a lot higher, but our sales were higher because we bought a new computer, sold the old computer in 2017. So we ended the year much better off than we ended 2017, where we were at -300 for 2018 versus -1,200 for 2017. We don't foresee any future equipment purchases. The computer is what, 2 years old now. We've been using the club's projector, but we also, we've been using the school's projector. But the club also has a projector that was donated to us by Erwin Wagman just before he passed, and so we have that projector if we need to. But so far, all the meeting rooms we've gone to have had a projector for us that we haven't needed to look into purchasing a new one. Alrighty, any questions on the Treasury? Rick? The last 2 or 3 years has been a trend of a down, yeah, mostly because the membership has been falling, so our dues income has been lower. And we've been trying to cut costs for that. One of the things we did was cut out the postal newsletter. That used to be $400 or $500 a year in postage, so we've cut that out. Although, ironically, now that we have fewer people to mail it to, it might be cheaper to go back to printing it. Well, not cheaper than nothing, but cheaper than it was before, because we didn't have to make 200 copies for postal minimums. Right now, oops, that was the next form I got to bring up in that window. Nope, I lost that window. Hang on a second. Our current financial status is pretty good. And I want, which one do I want? Let's do that one. No, account summary. So that's the last page I want. As of the end of 2018, so January 2019, we had just under $2,000 in cash assets, and that should last us several more years, even losing a couple $100 a year. But we are trying to raise our membership again numbers. We have a membership drive. In fact, that was one thing we had done on our membership page, where we've talked on our homepage. Where did it go? Membership drive. If you bring someone, guest in, and they join, you get an extension on your membership. So we're trying to have people bring in more members for us. That's one reason we really want to get a publicity person to help publicize the club so we can bring our membership back up again. We have looked at less expensive meeting locations. East High is charging us $30 a night, and pardon? 35, thank you. And yeah, 35. So 350 for the 10 months. The church is charging us $10 a night. We have looked around, and we can't find anything that would be cheaper than that. We did have our Saturday Q&A meetings at the JCC Tech Age Learning Center for a while. They were hosting us there at no charge. They have decided not to host us there anymore. And so we looked at what the costs would be. Would you say it was, Shirley, $150 for a half-day meeting? And so that's out of the question. Yeah. And so for the time being, Bob Hoey has been hosting the Green Apples and Q&A meetings. We typically get half a dozen or less people there, so that's been more than enough space. Last month and this month, Shirley and I are hosting it because Bob wasn't available. Next month, Shirley and I are going to be gone, so Bob can do Green Apples, but I don't know if it'll continue for Q&A. So we've been finding ways to cut expenses to help us out in the long run. Not directly, but the question was, do we have a GoFundMe page? But we do have a link on our website for joining. I don't know how well GoFundMe would work because that's typically intended for a thing. You want funding to do a thing. Yeah. Okay. We could also do a Patreon thing where you can donate money. We are a 501c3, so your membership is tax deductible if you. Well, actually, I don't know this year. Are professional dues still tax deductible this year if you itemize your expenses? I don't remember. Lyle's gone. He might have known because he helps do taxes. Do you have a question, Todd? Yeah, possibly. We do PayPal payments for electronic payments. I don't know, Rick. You set up our PayPal thing. Is there a way to do an auto renew on PayPal? we well, we could. Yeah, it's a good idea. Shirley, write that down. To look into an auto renew procedure. I would be a little concerned about keeping someone's credit card information on file. But there may be something in Square that we can set up as well, because we do Square for credit card payments and then PayPal for electronic payments. We do in the email meeting notices, we put renewal dates on it, and when people expire, we send out a renewal notice as well. Yeah, we had set it up so that we have 2 years, but it's easily added a 3-year button if you want. I've tried to make where is the page with the MailChimp? Where's MailChimp? There it is. Maybe I should make the renewal notice a little higher up. This was my test message, so it didn't have my renewal on it. Maybe you have to scroll down to find your renewal date. And now, so how many people did not get the email about the meeting? Check your junk folder. It is being sent through MailChimp, so that's supposed to be canned spam aware and to not go into junk folders, but it's still possible it might have made it. Actually, and the other thing too, let me see. What am I under? So you expire May of this year. Todd@donbernhard.com, right? So that's the other thing too. If you didn't get an email, make sure I have your email address right. George? Oh, good. Good. So we'll implement both of those. Thanks, George, and thanks for the suggestion, Todd. Then we have to take the complaints about I didn't want to renew and it auto renewed on me. Yeah, so it's when they fill out the renewal form through PayPal, that is probably I'm guessing one of the options that you can enable to have an auto recurring payment. Yeah, and that's probably what it's called rather than auto renew. It's probably a reoccurring payment, and we would set the payment frequency, and then the person would sign. Because the other problem with that is your credit cards expire, and then the renewal would fail. But theoretically, PayPal would send you a notice of that happening. Yeah. Right, and when somebody pays on PayPal, I get the email that they paid, so that we can keep it up to date in our membership database. So when a recurring payment comes through, I assume they would send another email. They probably will warn you a few days before. If they're good, and say if they're good, and PayPal and Square are both big enough companies, they probably do give you a notice 2 or 3 days before, and then would send me an email that it was done. We did switch to MailChimp for our mailing to make it a little easier to handle the mass mailings. And we're currently in the I'll get to you. Sorry, MailChimp gives you 2,000 addresses for free, so we're well below their free threshold. Dennis, and then Rick. Yeah. That's an interesting idea. Shirley, didn't you look into the one out near us? And yeah, we look. And one of the issues that we are facing as the club ages is that the younger generations, Dennis, I think you're the youngest one here. uh, yeah. They've grown up with computers and really don't need the users group. And so that's one of the things we've tried focusing more on the social aspect, the Q&A of it, where news is interesting, but people that want to know the news already do. So that's why we're trying to do more, demonstration topics and more current event type topics of what the latest things are, and what was his name here at East High? Ed Cavalier was our sponsor here, I guess is the right word, for years until he retired. And we've sort of just been inertia. I know back to St. John's Home, Rochester Googles, and some of the other groups. I think the PC Cube meeting meets there too. Several of the free meeting space locations. I know the Brighton Library has a free space. They don't let you schedule more than 2 or 3 months in a row to give someone else a chance. But I should check with Jerry about the St. John's Home. Because they have been meeting there for quite a long time. So that could be an option. Although every time we move the meeting location, we lose some people, but then we gain some other people. Yeah, when school's closed in the summer, we can't meet here. Yeah, paying 35 bucks a night for here is probably as cheap as we're ever going to find, and we keep wondering if they're going to figure out they're charging us too little. And how long have we been meeting here? 20 years? 25 years? We used to be paying over $100 a night because we were being charged for 2 custodians for overtime for both because we're after hours. So that was a drastic reduction in price when they stopped charging for that. Really? When I really? Oh, so I joined in '85 or '86, I think it was, and we were at the Road School in Henrietta, which is now a YMCA. And then we moved to Monroe High, downtown, because people thought Henrietta was too far away. And then people didn't like Monroe High because it was downtown. And then we moved here. Yeah, that was '84, '85, because that was when I started college. And I was waiting, almost bought an Apple II until I heard about this Macintosh thing that might be coming. George.
Before we close for the night, if we can have Jeff get up and say a little about,
Oh. Not to put you on the spots. Yeah. Yeah. So we were on Treasury report. So I guess is there any other questions on the Treasury and is there a motion to accept the report? So well, George. The ballots. Anyone else need to turn in a ballot?
Do we have a conclusive result, Rick, or is it too soon? Well, okay, while that's going on, let me mention that George Piketty brought up the interesting question of what happens if you've got somebody occupying 2 or 3 offices on the board. How does their vote count? And looking at the bylaws, in the section about the board of directors, it says, for voting purposes, a quorum of the board shall consist of a majority of the board members currently holding office. Votes shall be carried by a simple majority of those present and voting, which I think can reasonably be interpreted as persons rather than offices. Does anybody have a... No. Right, when we have the board meetings, right, yeah. Are people satisfied that we don't need to change that? Anything else we need?
There is, since we had the joint membership, where a second person in the same household has a discounted membership, both of those people get 1 vote.
Yeah, they're both considered members.
Yeah. Each person gets 1 vote, yeah.
I don't want to rush you, Rick. We can do the suspend and resume if you want. All right, that's what I figured. Yeah. I'm just trying to get around that. Suspend the business meeting, have the break, resume the business meeting, announce the exciting results of the election, yada yada.
I do want to point out that it was January 2012 when we last revised the bylaws, and that was like a 3-year thing to revise the bylaws.
And the result is? Okay, thank you very much.
All right, congratulations to
everybody's elected. Whoopie roll.
all the
I guess
heated and bitter debates and the heated and bitter debates and the contentious election and then any hanging chads and
I think what I'm looking for then is a motion to conclude the business meeting. George, so moves. I'm not sure whether it's the same rules as the board meetings, whether there has to be a second or not. We do have to have a second. So Carol has seconded. Any discussion? Is there ever discussion about concluding the meeting?
I don't want to conclude. No.
The days of Irwin Wagman and the ironclad Robert's Rules of Order are obviously not current. All in favor of concluding the business meeting? Many people are in favor. Anybody opposed? Good for you. Thank you so much for your patience. And next year you won't have Dick Nixon to kick around anymore.
All right. Thank you, Charlie. All right. Why don't we take about, say 10, 15-minute break. The men's and ladies' restrooms are down the hall to the right on in the second corridor. And I'll follow you. We have some refreshments from Shirley. What do we have tonight, Shirley? We've got St. Patrick's Day coming up. Remember, Pi Day is tomorrow as well. Yep. we start? Alrighty, I think we'll get started again. It probably doesn't matter. The screen's pretty good. There has been another surge in fake tech support calls, especially now purporting to be from Apple. We don't know if we like the fact that they're now saying they're from Apple, because it was always Microsoft, and you could say I don't have anything from Microsoft. We did get a customer in our store, brought in his PC because Apple called him and said he had a virus. So that was kind of, yeah, turnabout was fair play. But there was a story on local news from us. Let me see if I can...
To do that, you will get
go all the way back here.
Calls from someone saying they're from Apple. Hang up. It's a scam. News 10 NBC chief investigative reporter Berkeley Breen found one man whose phone never stopped ringing. Burke?
Hey, Brett, he's one of a handful of people who contacted me after the call started. The crooks calling, they don't want to help you with any technical problem. They're after your Apple password, and if they get that, they get a lot.
Yeah, I got 8 calls, and they started at 9:57 in the morning.
And the calls did not stop for 3.5 hours.
The average person can't do much about stuff like that. And that's exactly why I called you.
A viewer named Beatrice Rhodes says she was called 10 times on Saturday. I reached her at her home in Springwater, Livingston County. When did you get the calls? Approximately what day?
All day. Saturday all day. All morning and the afternoon.
I contacted Apple. It directed me to this webpage where it says if you get one of these calls, hang up and contact them directly. We'll get this number posted to this web story.
Major corporations like Apple, Amazon, Google will never call you out of the blue.
Tyler Frederick runs Mac Ave with his family. It's a computer store in Victor.
And with these robocalls, they're attempting to get your username and password to gain access to your account so they can have access to your iCloud, potentially your Amazon account, bank accounts.
In Webster, Jim kept the voicemails that he got Saturday. The computerized voice warns him that before he uses his Apple device, he needs to talk to a, quote, support advisor.
Just annoying and thinking that some other elderly person might get scammed, because that happens all the time.
Is to the Apple store at Eastview Mall. I called it this afternoon. I got an immediate message that says Apple is aware of these calls going around. It says don't give any information, and if you think you've been hacked, call police. An insurance policy here is to change your Apple password. And to do that, you will get a number and a step-by-step instruction in this story at WHCC.com. Berkeley Breen News 10 NBC.
They have been spoofing Call ID as well. So your Call ID says Apple Inc. with the correct Apple phone number.
If you're over the age of 21, you
stop.
should be able to...
Don't do that anymore. So if you go to appleid.apple.com, you can log in and change your password. We often say that your password is kind of the weakest link. If you have a password that's too easy to guess, or your security questions are too easy to guess or to look up. But now we are getting these fake tech support calls, fake virus warnings, and people are letting you into their, or letting them into your computer, and they go to great lengths to try to prove that there's something wrong. You know, someone's trying to break into your computer right now, and my joke is yes, you are. And they'll bring up files. They bring up a terminal window, and they'll run a netstat, which shows your network statistics. And all this stuff starts flying by, and the average person doesn't know what any of that means, and they use that as proof that you're being hacked, and you just need to give us your passwords, and we can help you clean everything out. And then we want $500, $600 in order to I just made a mess. Sorry, to clean your system out. One thing they've done recently too is they've made it harder to submit fraud to your credit card company because they now are charging a service. So you're signing up for a service contract. So $600. $600 seems to be the average price. I've joked if they were lower, people wouldn't think about it so much, and they might scam more people. And they'll give you a 1-year service contract where you can call them as many times as you want for service. So that makes it very hard to dispute with your credit card company that you didn't receive the thing you paid for, because it's a service contract. You're not paying for a thing, you're paying for a year of service. And we've actually had our customers that have disputed the charges after they fall for the scam. And then the scam company produces a signed contract that's been signed with a script font. And that's proof that you signed up for this service contract and we're not going to refund your money. So it's very hard. And we've seen several people have been caught with the we want your bank account information. And it's even harder to get money back when you gave them your bank account, checking account number and routing numbers. Or if you're buying gift cards. We had someone get caught by the kidnapped grandson scam, and they went and bought $5,000 worth of iTunes gift cards to pay the ransom. And my first thought is, well, what store let you buy $5,000 of gift cards? They should have stopped you right then. But then they were trying to return the gift cards or sell them back to somebody else, and you can't, because gift cards are the same as cash. The bad guys have you read the number off the back of the gift card, and the money's gone. So no one is going to buy the gift card back because they can't prove the money's still there. So be very careful about who you trust. Take your computer into a shop, someone someone you can trust, face to face, rather than dealing with some random phone call you get. All right, anybody have a question for us tonight? Sure. Yeah, so Do Not Disturb is a feature on your iPhone, iPad, and Apple Watch. And it's a little half moon. Actually, not a half moon, a crescent moon. So when you turn that feature on in the control strip or in the system settings, you'll get that little crescent moon icon in your top status bar. And it does several things, and you can change some of the things it does in the settings. You can schedule it. So a lot of people like scheduling Do Not Disturb for when they're asleep. From 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. It turns on. And it silences your phone. You can set it to be silenced when the phone is locked or all the time. And so calls and notifications are silenced. So any notification ping you might get, any phone call you might get will be blocked. You can also say allow call from and then pick a group in your contact list. And what we've seen a lot of people doing now is this is a way to cut down on scam calls and fraud and telemarketing, is you always turn on Do Not Disturb, but have allow calls from favorites. And so the only time it rings is when it's someone in your favorites list, unless the bad guy spoofs that phone number. So that's one neat way of cutting that down. And there's also a repeated calls option. So if the same person calls back within 3 minutes, it will let that second call through, assuming that this is an emergency and they called you again very quickly, and you can turn that on or off. So you can have that scheduled time. There's also a Do Not Disturb while driving option, and so what that does is you can have that set to be automatic, and it uses your GPS to realize how fast you're going. And if you're going more than, I think, 5 miles an hour, it thinks you're driving. What I've noticed on my phone is when I plug into my Bluetooth in the car, it assumes I'm driving because I'm plugged into the car. But if you're using your maps, then you still get your on-screen notification and your turn-by-turn directions. So it doesn't disturb that feature. It doesn't stop that feature from happening, just other notifications and pings. And you also have an option to have your screen stay dark. so that it never lights up, and it will send a message. I'm driving now. I'll get back to you when I'm not driving anymore. So the other person doesn't see you not. If you don't answer the message, they don't start sending you more and more messages. We hear stories, especially in the teenage world. Well, I texted him 2 minutes ago and he hasn't responded yet. Something must be horribly wrong. No. And so that with automatically connected to Bluetooth, you can turn that Do Not Disturb while driving. There is an option. Are they going to have that? No, there's no picture of that. That you can tap I'm not driving. So if you're a passenger, you can tap I'm not driving and get into the phone. Or you can lie and say you're not driving and get into the phone. But it turns off. Basically, it silences everything except your favorites if you turn that feature on. So that's a handy feature. And what they've added in iOS 12, I think it was 12.1. Let me see if I can find a picture of it. There's an option. There it is. So when you tap and hold on the Do Not Disturb icon, you have an option, because the big thing about Do Not Disturb, and I do this when I go to the movie theater, I put my phone on silent at the theater, and then 4 days later, realize that my phone is still on silent, and I missed a phone call from my boss, which you never want to do. So now you can say Do Not Disturb for a time, so for 1 hour until this evening, or when you leave the location you're in, so when you leave the theater, when you leave church, it will turn itself off, or until the end of the event. So it looks in your calendar and says, oh, your calendar you're scheduled till 10 o'clock. So at 10 o'clock, I'll turn Do Not Disturb off because that's when your calendar event ends. I generally like when I leave this location because we might leave early, we might leave late, but when I leave the location, it can turn it back on again. And so it looks like that is 12.0 a feature when you tap and hold on the Do Not Disturb icon. One thing that it does do, and we'll get to George in a second, is it mutes it can mute YouTube audio. So we've had customers will bring their phone in, and they can't play anything on YouTube, but iTunes plays fine. And so we're checking the mute settings, and the mute switch on your phone mutes everything, but Do Not Disturb, YouTube honors the Do Not Disturb list, but apparently iTunes doesn't. You might not want to be disturbed by anything else, but you still want to listen to your music. George. Yeah, so the question is, you can set up a block list based on the phone number that comes in, and if someone spoofs the number of someone you know, yes, you do block that number, and then the person you know can't get a hold of you anymore. The bad guys are spoofing area codes, so you'll get a call. Way too many ads on this page. You'll get a call that comes from your area code, and they've even started spoofing exchanges, so it'll be from your exchange. And then they started spoofing the actual phone number, the last 4 digits. And we've had customer calls us that say, people keep calling me, yelling at me that I'm sending them or making junk phone calls to them, and I'm not. Well, no, you're not. You just got lucky enough that your phone number was picked by the bad guy to send prank calls. Same thing happens in your email. A spammer will send out email, and the return address is your name. So it hides them, and then you get all the error messages and bounce messages and all the angry people saying, take me off this list. And it's just like on a postal letter. You can put anyone's return address you want and send out anything you want, and if there's a problem, it goes back to that other person. So that's the email servers and the Internet, the Internet Engineering Task Force. They're working on authenticated email, so to try to cut down on spam, so that mail has to be authenticated before it's sent. But there's something called the downgrade attack, where the bad guy can say, oh, I don't support that protocol, and as it is now, the servers will say, okay, here's the plain text, and bypass any of the security. So that legacy technology, when no one thought about security because it wasn't a problem, is still a pain on us. Tim Berners. We talked about that. The World Wide Web is 30 years old. Ah, here it is. There is a really old. Oh, wow, this is older than I thought it was. The Adventures of Wendy Wilcox and her dog Willis. This guy got a spam email and decided to have some fun and started corresponding back and forth with this Nigerian 419 scammer. So the 419 scam is you've won a inheritance, or I'm a prince and I've got to get my money out of the country and I'm going to give you a crap load of money. And so he started sending these mail messages back and forth, answering the messages and trying to make dates with the person. And there was one of them where the guy's saying, 20% is what is the commission, and so they answer back, well, I usually ask for 30% when I steal money, and posted this as their snapshot, and here's my dog. We're able to get the guy to pose in front of a webcam in some internet cafe somewhere, and this was 15 years ago. This was a problem, but it's been a real. I'm actually surprised this website is still up after 15 years. But yeah, scams have been around forever, and unfortunately, some people want the easy way out. And so now the bad guys are hiring call centers. They don't even want to make their own phone calls. They'll hire a call center to do it for them. Yes. Mm-hmm. So Malwarebytes is one of the good anti-malware programs. We've talked about this before the meeting started, and it will scan your Mac for malicious software and remove it if it finds it. They have a free version that you run when you want, and then they have a pay version, $40 per computer, or if you do multiple computers, it's cheaper per computer. Yeah. Yep. They also have Windows versions as well. Yeah. The pay version runs all the time, catches things as they get downloaded. The free version, you run it when you want. They now also have an iOS version, and I'm trying to find. It may not tell me because I'm on a computer. No, there it is, iOS, and an Android version. And so it does a couple of things on your phone, especially with iOS. It's fairly well protected. It's almost impossible to get malicious software on your phone because it has to come from the Apple Store, the Apple App Store. So you can get the fake messages that you're infected and call this phone number. That's just a website ad. But it's very, very difficult to actually get malicious software on your phone. But the one thing it does do is it will check the known list of spam phone calls, and it has an ad blocking service built in so that it can block ads on websites, because ads are where the majority of the malicious things come from, as a malicious ad. The problem is most of the web is free because of the ads. And so we've seen a lot of companies are putting up ad block blockers. So if you have an ad blocker on, you can't go to a website. Or some websites have now put up a paywall, so that you have to pay to see the information on this website. DNC gives you, 30 views a month of DNC articles before you have to pay to see their stores. And so a lot of websites don't work when you turn ad blocking on. It is kind of an interesting thing to run. One of the, what was his name? Was it Marco? One of the app developers wrote a ad blocker. It was when it was Marco Arment. Yeah, when Apple added this feature to be able to put these content filters in your Safari, that he wrote an ad blocker, and it sold like crazy. It was 99 cents, and he sold tens of thousands of them in a couple of days. And then he pulled it and refunded everybody's money, because he got to thinking, my website survives on ads, so I shouldn't be having a service that blocks ads because I rely on ads. So the vast majority of ads are fine. And the ad industry is trying to figure out ways to block the malicious ads and let the good ads through. And that's the danger. So to answer your question, it's not necessary. A lot of people like running it anyway just to be safe. If you have an Android phone, if I go back a bit, Android is a lot worse than iOS. The Google Store does vet their programs before it goes online, but it seems to be they don't vet it as well as Apple. Every now and then you hear about Apple removing 3 or 4 programs, and you hear about Google removing 100,000 programs that have been malicious. And there's a game called Fortnite. Thank you. Anyone play Fortnite? Dennis? So Fortnite is a free game that earns $30 million a month. So $1 million a day for a free game, because in the game you can buy skins, you can buy dance moves, you can buy crap. But the game is free. And on the Mac, it's in the App Store, so the company pays 30% on $1 million a day. So they see themselves losing $300,000 a day. So when they made an Android version, they wouldn't put it in the Google Store because Google takes 30% too. So on an Android phone, there's a way to turn off all the protection and do what's called sideload an app from an untrusted source. So Fortnite published method on how to turn off your protection, sideload the game, and then people stopped, rather than the next step is turn your protection back on. But within hours of Fortnite releasing the instructions, bad guys put out fake instructions, and fake Fortnites started getting installed, and it was tens or hundreds of thousands of fake Fortnites. But it's a free game. Oh, yeah? Yep. And the problem becomes, there's the game, that people are always trying to cheat and using cheat codes or trying to use someone else's stuff to get this stuff for free. And that's where a lot of the malicious software comes. You do a Google search, you find a website that says, here's a way to get this dance move for free, and it's malicious software. Yep. So I think that's going to be it for today. If you do need to get your although we should say, welcome, Larry, Soundbites listener, recognize your voice. Yep, been in the store. So glad you could make it here. To get your fix of computer questions weekly is Soundbites. Where is it? There we are. Saturdays from 12 to 2 on Jazz 90.1 FM. Member supported Jazz 90.1 FM. Membership drive coming up. Actually, membership drive has started, I think. Yeah, it started this Monday. Yeah. And so we'll be doing that this Saturday. And next month, where is my apple cider? George is going to be doing a presentation on iOS graphics on the cheap. And so we'll see you all next month. That's going to be on the April 10th meeting. So thank you all for coming, and see you next month.